Hey, I'm the professor. That's Lucas, and this is No Prize Podcast. How are you, my friend? Whoop, you're on mute.
I'm doing great. How about yourself, sir?
I'm doing good. I was doing a little better there when you weren't having any audio come through. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to talk this whole time.
I'm good. I'm good.
Well,
Covers.
here the tail end of February, getting ready to spring into spring here, and hopefully within the next month or two, I'll be vaccinated. They opened it up for my category, so it's just about you know navigating all the websites and trying to get a vaccination, which could take more time than the whole pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still trying to understand what we're doing here. We're talking about because now all of a sudden, certain states are opening up. They're trying to open up the schools and everything. Yet the kids are not on the list as far as getting the vaccinations yet. So I don't really understand that. But hey,
Yeah,
I'm I'm not the representatives or the governors or anything. I just vote for them. So whatever.
I wonder what we're gonna do when we don't have so much time to read comic books. I don't know. I kind of enjoyed the last year. I've read so many comics. It's unbelievable. Uh,
Not
but
all good, but
oh, they are not all good. But some of them are. You know, it's all about finding those diamonds in the rough, right? Or the next big book, like
right.
that one sitting behind you with the Amazing Spider-Man 55. What's that going for now?
It's Amazing Spider-Man 55. Oh, this one. That's probably just maybe like a $20 to $30 book.
Oh, really?
But right, yeah, but it's still got some legs in that. There's the second print that's out. There's the third print, which, and once again, those are second and third prints. All in all, it is the color of the tents back there. So second print is, I think it was like red. The third print is going to be like blue. There's going to be a man thing that's just like that. There's going to be a carnage just like that. So,
Yeah. Pat
oh my god,
Gleason's making his money.
hey, God bless him. God bless him. You take that one idea you hit, and you keep running, and you keep going and
Oh
going.
yeah. He hit a nerve with the fans. So you know, do it up, run it
Yeah,
into the ground.
he is not going to stop, and God bless him, man. I mean, because when you really think about it, all it is it's like 3D, it's 3D software, right? It's 3D software. Sometimes when you're trying to build a character, it's exactly that. That's all it is.
Huh.
So he was like, all right, I want to build this new. That's
Wait a
it.
s- Wait
That's
a second. I'm done.
yeah, I'm done.
Like, but wait, look at the little spider right there. That's, wow, that's something else. Like, now he's going to be doing covers with like AutoCAD or something, and just be like, this looks like blueprints to my house. What the?
Dude, there's so many. Yeah, there are so many covers that I've seen going after this. It looks like it's just AutoCAD, and some of them
Wow.
are really bad too. Some of
Oh,
them are
really?
not good. Yeah, like
Wow.
that Carnage joint. It does not look good at all yet. Here we are.
Yeah. Well, it's that next big thing, right? Everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon. So, what do you say we start talking about comics before we? Because I know we got to talk about WandaVision, but let's. Why don't we save WandaVision to the end? Because then we'll leave everybody with our speculations on what's happening with the season finale or series finale, right? Because I don't think we're getting season two. But
I don't know. I have heard some rumors that there might be a season two. So, but we'll see.
well, yeah, I don't. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, but you know, we'll see. I would. You know what I would like, but before we get into the comics, I'd like to see maybe them spin off Vision and Scarlet Witch into a movie, because I really think a movie would bring in $1 billion. Just to see what's next there,
Right.
and who
Yeah.
knows.
Right. I mean, and their backstory is so complicated in between the two of them, man. And what, since what, 64? No, because I was
Mm,
doing some research on some of the stuff that they've got going on in between the two of them. I mean, and then they've got stuff that happens to each of them, and then it spins off into their own freaking doggone storylines off on the other side. So,
Yeah.
man, you could go all types of ways with just both of them. So,
Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff that they've kind of untouched, but I do think they're throwing a lot in. But let's hold off on our Vision and Scarlet Witch speculation until the end. But let's jump into Spider-Man. Let's do Spider-Man first. Get that bad boy out of the way. All right, so we're doing Amazing Spider-Man number 60. We got Nick Spencer and the old Spider-Man stalwart Mark Bagley. Uh, you know, Bagley, he did Amazing Spider-Man forever, and then did Ultimate Spider-Man, and he actually broke Jack Kirby's uninterrupted streak as far as uninterrupted artist on a title. So Bagley really is, for this generation or the, millennials or whatever, is the Spider-Man artist. He is the John Romita for this millennium, right? Um, the only thing that I don't really like about Bagley is more like how uh, he's kind of melded into the Bendis Talking Heads kind of book, you know, and that's
right. Mhm.
that is basically what this book is. And I have to tell you how much I did not enjoy this book because of just the overwhelming amount of dialogue and exposition, and Peter trying to have this, Mary Jane kind of forces him to stand on a stage in the middle of a playhouse and go through a monologue of his relationship with Harry. And really, it's too long. It's like 5 pages long in the book. It takes up most of the book, and and then at the end, it's like I don't really feel like anything gets resolved. I feel like just kind of getting into like what he's talking about. I think Nick Spencer has trouble hitting the dramatic notes of what Mary Jane and Peter and Harry and what all those relationships, what they mean to each other and what they should mean to Peter. And I think that it just comes out overwhelmingly as just plot device.
Yeah.
And when I talk about the Brian Bendis dialogue, what I mean is really kind of throwaway lines. Like just kind of a conversation that doesn't drive the plot, but there's a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
So they just sit there and talking, and it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't mean anything. It's just filler. Uh, kind of like listening to a drum riff that's like 10 minutes too long, right? You're like, all right, I'm over the drum riff, trying to get back to the music. Um, Here, with him talking to Harry, or the visual representation of Harry, it just, to me, it just was spinning the wheels on driving the plot forward. We all know how Spider-Man feels with great power comes great responsibility. We all know he doesn't have to spend 5 pages dialoguing it. It seems to me like there's a lot of wasted time. Now, the problem that I actually have with this book is the fact that, first of all, Mary Jane is put in this position towards the end of the book where you realize that she's had Mysterio there with her the entire time, and he's been listening in on everything.
Right.
So I'm sitting there going, wait a second. So Mary Jane has no problem putting in one of Spider-Man's villains. And first of all, I guess Mysterio knows that Spider-Man's Peter Parker. I guess. Because
Yeah.
if he didn't, he does now, right? Um, so that drives me nuts because it just seems like everybody knows that he's Peter Parker now, which kind of throws out the whole "with great power comes great responsibility" and why he hides his identity from people in the first place. But then you have Doctor Strange at the tail end of the book go in and apparently Doctor Strange realizes there's what's wrong with Peter Parker, and he goes into Las Vegas where Mephisto is now king. Why? Because why wouldn't he be? Um, and asks what's wrong with Peter Parker's soul. So 10 years after the fact, we're getting Doctor Strange finally realizing that something's wrong with Mephisto. And now, you realize that what they've been talking about, I don't know if they're bringing back the marriage, or at this point, why not? Because Peter and Mary Jane are back together.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They're living together and
So
everything. Yep.
yeah, so why not?
Sort of.
I mean, that would create some drama. So I'm like, I imagine I'm on board for that. It's just, it seems to me this issue is pretty heavy-handed. Like there was nothing subtle about it. And that's why I didn't like it. And usually I like Nick Spencer's dialogue because I think he's snappy. I think he's witty. I think that his dialogue, for the most part, kind of flows. This was like them dropping like a ton of bricks on you with like just no, just tons of talking heads and not really driving the plot until the last 2 pages of the book. And then, I mean, because Doctor Strange wasn't even in the book until he pops in and
At the
says,
very end.
"Hey, yeah." So it feels disjointed, and I don't know if maybe Nick just wants to hurry up and get to the next big event crossover book, but to me, that's where I stand, and I'm not going to clobber it because I do love me some Bagley, um, but for me, just wasn't all there. I think it was a bit of a stretch. What do you think?
$3.99 for this book,
Okay.
and nothing.
No action.
$3.99 for this freaking book, and nothing freaking happened. Nobody's throwing uh, punches. Nobody's smacking anybody around. You've brought up before. Did Spider-Man actually do any Spider-Man things in this book?
No, he swung over the city on his last appearance of the book, but before that he wasn't even in the costume. It was just him saying "woe is me," and then you know Mary Jane put him on the stage to say "woe is me" for 5 pages.
Yeah. So let me count this. So I see one page. Okay, and that's it. So for $3.99,
Hmm.
you get 5 pages of Peter Parker exposition, and you got Doc Strange, Mysterio, Mary Jane talking most of the time, Kindred being a butthead, whatever. And then for all that, for $3.99, you actually only get 1 page of Spider-Man, kind of being Spider-Man, just kind of swinging through the buildings and everything, not actually saving anybody, right?
Yeah,
Um, So that's the way I look at it. I didn't really get the bang for my buck, right? I don't like the talking. I don't like the talking head bubbles. If I wanted to read talking head bubbles, I'd go over to DC. You know, because they're terrible at it. Just giving me don't talk to me. Tell me, show me what's going on and everything, right? If you're trying to explain to me no, explain to me, right? Um, And what was kind of pissing me off right now is that there's obviously strife going inside his soul. And that's actually obviously causing strife inside the relationship of Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Got it, but they don't argue. There's no freaking plates freaking flying across the room. Nobody's freaking slamming any doors. They're just sitting down, nice freaking calm people. No, I want to see some real love, some real New York, because they're from New York. I want to see some real New York aggression. So, because hey, you don't love that person unless you slam a door in their face a couple times. That's just the way that I want to see some real. I want to see, especially Mary Jane, man. Mary Jane,
right.
she knows how to act it out to communicate what she's feeling through her actions. I want to see some real Mary Jane, some real New York Bronx, Queensboro, freaking Mary Jane come out. And I'm tired. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of Mary Jane being more like a Karen or one of these ex millennials. Let's just talk it out, Peter. How about this? How about you get up on the stage and you act it out? How about you feel your feelings and all that? No, that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah, and I'm gonna maybe I'm gonna push back again a little bit on Nick Spencer with just a line that he had with Mary Jane, where he reveals that after Gwen Stacy died, that Mary Jane was in therapy trying to figure everything out, and that Gwen was her best friend and stuff like that. I'm like, I was reading that going, are you kidding me? They were not best friends in the 70s when before Gwen died. They were rivals at best.
Yeah,
It was, even though they all hung out together. Mary Jane, Gwen, Peter, Harry. The only reason Mary Jane was with Harry was to be closer to Peter,
yeah,
and they made no uncertain terms that Mary Jane was the rival for Peter's affection, and they were catty at best to each other. Not, I mean, like they hung out together, but they weren't best buddies. They never showed them being friendly to each other. Mary Jane always had something catty to say about Gwen, and the way Mary Jane was characterized back in the 70s and late 60s, she was the ultimate party girl who had no time for anyone, no time for relationships, whatever. She was off doing her own thing. Nothing bothered her. This was just the next big thing. She was not friends with Gwen. They hung out together. This there's no way she would be able to. She would tell Peter she was my best friend and have Peter actually believe it, because Peter would be like, "Man, you would have been trying to get with me when I was with Gwen."
yeah,
So you weren't best friends. So that was one of the things that I was like, well, that's kind of revisionist history right there. And you know, I just want to call Nick Spencer out a little bit for that. Uh,
mm,
but
yeah,
for the most part, that is just creating drama where there really isn't. So
yeah. I mean, once again, for the 3.99 so if you consider how long they've been doing this whole Kindred thing, right? It's been
mm,
over a year since they've been doing that, right?
60
So,
issues. His first appearance was in issue 1 of this volume. So
woo,
yeah,
woo.
yeah, yeah,
So that's $240
yeah.
we've spent, and that whole thing that was building up the whole Kindred deal, right? And then eventually they started doing the whole Spider-Web family thing, right? That was supposed to be a big, right? Oh, I've
Yep,
got Miles Morales, Spider Woman, Gwen Stacy. They even brought in Madam Web. Mary Jane got caught up in there. They brought back I forget, like Anansi and that whole freaking vamp spider vampire deal. Right? They brought all those guys out, and for $240, this is what we get. We get uh, Peter Parker up on the stage being a little beat. All right, that's what we get right now. Are you
yeah.
serious? Are you
It's
serious?
You know what this issue was? This issue was a filler issue, right? This was a filler before they introduced the new costume next issue, right? For some reason they decided he needs a new costume. So this was
Then why not do it in this issue?
this was like the yeah,
like
this was like the third epilogue. This is like the third epilogue to the Kindred story. And I guess, did the Mary Jane comic ever actually finish, or was that a victim of the pandemic?
I think, yeah, that was
It
a.
it
I
did
think that
finish, right?
I'm not. Dude, I don't even remember reading reading.
So maybe, so this, I mean, obviously Mary Jane and Mysterio is a direct continuation of that miniseries. Um, I do think they finished it. I don't. It's forgettable, but I do think they finished it. But this is a continuation of that storyline too. So I know they got to give Mary Jane something to do, and or else why have her in the book? But um, I enjoy reading about Mary Jane. I just don't see why there has to be some like duplicity there. Why they have to involve Mysterio, like, because that's totally against what Mary Jane would ever really do. Mary Jane would never put a supervillain next to Peter. She might walk a villain into Spider-Man, but she would never walk him into Peter. So that, I'm just like, we'll see. Maybe there's a reason for it, but I doubt it. It makes her look. It makes her look a little underhanded, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, if you're going to do that, You get look, ladies. I understand that not everybody in your life is going to be perfect, right? But if you do get involved with some freaking organized criminals, especially the one that's like the bad of your husband's, hey, you might want to let your husband know, hey, the dude is bringing in a paycheck. Cause I get it. The dude's bringing in a paycheck. He freaking hired her when nobody else was hired her. She was kind of bad rep, but he was trying to revive her career and give her a paycheck. Got it. But please let your significant other know. So when you end up missing, he knows exactly who to come looking for.
You
Come
know,
on now.
now that I'm thinking of it, that would probably make a better issue, right? Like instead of having Peter like spew for 5 pages over his relationship with Harry, wouldn't it be great to see Mary Jane stumble over for 5 pages trying to tell her that she's working for Mysterio?
Yeah, it
that,
would.
trying to figure out the way to say it. that
Yeah,
would that
that
would be more
it was
interesting
great.
over
Yeah,
5 pages. So
yo, yeah, yo, yo. You know the most interesting. I tell you what, the most interesting series or thing that theme on TikTok and Instagram right now is wives and girlfriends trying to explain to their husbands and boyfriends why they have an OnlyFans page. There you go. She's up there. You got her trying to explain why she's got this dude and like, well, he only shoots me from this angle, and no, okay. I told you not to. I told you not to. This is the big bad, and you're gonna go to okay. Nope. Uh-uh. So so right now, this is the two big bad chicks in Peter Parker's life. He's got the black cat who's just a straight thief. Believes she's honest about it, and then you got Mary Jane, who she claims that she's making an honest living, but she's linking up with the big bad and won't even tell her.
all right,
That's what
so
he's got.
speaking about Black Cat, we're gonna spin off. We're gonna stay in the Spider-Man universe, and we're gonna review Black Cat number three. This is the second number three this year, I think, or in the year, right?
Is it?
I
Yeah,
think so.
it
Yeah.
is because I remember there was a whole big deal. So see, this is King and Black Cat, right? And but the other Black Cat that was her solo series that was it was like a whole bunch of it was like 100 covers, 1 or 200 covers for J. Scott Campbell, Art German, everything. But this is supposed to be her with within the whole thing with Venom going on, and it's I didn't need it, right? If you want her to be an Asgardian, make her an Asgardian, right? But they've been here's where I see what they did. What they're trying to do. I got it right because wasn't it just maybe a 4 or 5 issues ago in Black Cat where they had her wearing the rope the Iron Man armor, right?
Yeah.
And people were like, what? No, that's not. No. We don't. You don't. She doesn't need that. Now they've got her as an Asgardian, wearing Asgardian magic and mess around with that stuff.
Hmm.
And people are like, "What? oh, okay, whatever." You know. And which once again, I'm fine with that. But you better not get rid of her or one defining thing, and that's her sexiness,
Hmm.
right? You better bring the interior art. You better bring the sexiness. So I'm definitely interested in seeing her because you are the quintessential Rican Black Cat fan. So I'm interested in hearing what you had to say about this.
Well, so we got well, actually, Johnny's the quintessential Black Cat fan, which
Okay.
but but we have Jed McKay, writer, and he's like one of the what do they call it, the Stormbreakers or something now. These like the new next wave of Marvel creators. They're actually giving them ads inside the books to like, hey, this is the next big writer. Jed McKay is actually the focus this month on that. And then we have CF Vila as the artist. We've Brian Reber on colors, Farron Delgado as the letterer, which is a weird time. You don't see VC's Clayton Cowles or someone like this. This is a new letterer I've never seen before. So hey, good for that. Anyway, this book it's a King and Black crossover. You don't really see the symbiotes in this until the last page. They spend the whole time with what I guess what happened last issue was Felicia grabbed hold of a tree limb of Yggdrasil, the uh, the the life tree in for Asgard, and for some reason, when you grab a tree limb from Yggdrasil, it actually turns you into a Thor type Asgardian character. Um, so it must have been enchanted somehow. I'm gonna,
Yes.
let's bail out Jed McKay on that. There's enchanted. It's enchanted. um, so now apparently the tree limb, and I see this is where it kind of has a mind of its own, right? So the tree limb is actually acting a lot like the symbiote, right? I
Yes.
mean,
Hmm.
trying to talk to her, promising her like all the power in the world if she continues to wield this weapon. And that's basically what you get. This issue is another talking heads issue where the weapon is tempting her and showing her how much power she would have if she gives into this, and they show her in many instances fighting the symbiote dragons and just kind of going right through them and just laying waste to her enemies, and just they show her like being able to have power, being able to fix all the things that were wrong in her life, basically temptation. They show her previous problems where she gets beaten down by Doc Ock and the Owl, and how that wouldn't happen anymore because she would have the power to control that. And in the background, you have Doctor Strange and also Black Cat's little flunkies supporting cast, uh, you know, basically fretting in the background, saying, "Oh no, what do we do? Oh, she's gonna give in, and and then that's basically all they do for the issue. They're in the background. So in the end, the last final temptation that this weapon gives her is the ability to make the people in her life love her, and that's the final straw because she would never make anybody in her life love her unless they actually loved her. So that's basically where she kind of turns around, uh, gives up the power, and then Doctor Strange actually uses his cloak of levitation to wrap up the tree limb so no one else can touch it, and danger averted, with the exception of symbiote dragons flying through the city. And let's go not use all that power that they were going to be promising me and attack the symbiote dragons with my clause. And that's how this ends. And it says here, follow Felicia and Strange in King of Black 4, and next month uh, is Black Cat number 4. So I imagine this is not just a King in Black miniseries, that we're getting a number 4 that's not King in Black, right? So
Yeah, I thought we just had King and Black 4 though, or was that King and Black 3?
oh no,
Hold
no,
up.
no, the fourth issue of King in Black came out already.
Right.
So this is a maybe a late tie-in because King of Black 4 came out last week. So this is just
Right.
a late, just a late tie-in. So
So wait, they tell you to go to King and Black 4, but there's nothing that happened with them that involved anything in the storyline.
I don't remember seeing Black Cat and King of Black 4, but I mean I read so many comics I could be wrong, but
Holy,
uh,
are you kidding me? I,
maybe they mean 5. Maybe they mean 5.
hold up. Hold up.
Stand by while Lucas
Hold
flips
up.
through King and Black 4 to find out if there's
Okay.
anything
Okay.
involving
Oh,
Black Cat.
okay. Okay. I see it. I
Oh,
see it.
is she in the background on the panel?
No, 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 no. In fact, I will. I will bring it up.
Ah, so What did you think of this book? Oh, I
Yep,
see her in the background right there.
yep, right, and he's holding the stick.
Oh, so
So
Doctor Strange took the power.
well, yeah, so he's had this weird stick for a while. That stick is from when he went up to he and Sentry they went to Asgard,
Yeah.
and he and Sentry kind of distracted all the Asgardian gods so that Doctor Strange could cut a piece out of that tree. And they never explained why that was, or how he knew what he had to do, because back in the mythology of Asgard, um, there was a time when one of or a character from um, whatever mythology, it doesn't explain whether it's Asgardian or not, fought against Null, and Null was killed using something called the White Wood of Frenheim. I think
Okay, I
was
remember that. Yeah.
so I've postulated before that that white wood came from a part of Vanaheim, using a mystical magic and everything. So I'm postulating that Doctor Strange knew that in order to do that, you had to go to Yggdrasil, cut Pete off of it, put some mystic around it, and now you got something that could possibly kill gods, right? So he was going against Loki with this thing and everything. But here's an interesting thing that happened when he got it. When he got this piece of whitewood from Yggdrasil, he actually became endowed with the power of the gods. I forget which power of the gods. I forget what was actually called. So he's had this look before. So he's taking this look now, and it didn't. I'm thinking, did he really even do anything in Kingdom Black 4 with it? No, he
I
just
know, because I think this is the end of the book. He kind of shows up as the big, you know,
yes.
overpower face
Well,
null.
right, yeah, it's him just standing in the middle. It's actually in the middle of the book, and it's just him standing there looking cool in new dreads, looking like Noah from Noah's Ark.
Yeah,
That was
but
that.
they had the power to grow his hair out. That was,
Yeah, so yeah, that is basically this thing. It doesn't really explain why this black and green vices her with the golden arc and everything. I don't. Who knows, right? Um, the you did point out an interesting thing in that you were talking about how it's taking control, kind of, well, not really taking control of her, but trying to talk to her, trying to
Hmm.
get over to move over to the dark side. um, and that's an interesting thing because that is kind of like the way a symbiote moves and talks, right? It doesn't just freaking take you over. It gets you. It talks to you. Like, hey, let me take over. Let me do this, and then I'll give you this, right? That's exactly the way a symbiote. So, but instead of being a symbiote, it's possible that whatever this god of light is, it's got similarities, because they actually talked about that in King of Black 4. Is that whatever the God of Light is, it kind of moves and talks everything just like a symbiote does. So that's there's some possible indications about that, especially because once again we don't know really where Yggdrasil came from. Right, so it's possible Yggdrasil came from outer space, landed on Earth, or actually landed in the outer realms, and now it's blossoming and the woods are everywhere. So let's let them explain that.
So, well, I have a question for you because I
Hmm.
mean, you've been the one that's been educating even me on a lot of this King and Black stuff that over the years I've missed the references and there's so many ideas and threads going into this main plot and everything happening around it. Do you think you have to be a hardcore fan to really kind of appreciate this story and the buildup? And do you think some of the story might be lost on the casual fan that might just pick up just the core King and Black book?
Absolutely, because I think the only ones that are really enjoying the story right now are hardcore speculators, right? Because speculators are the ones that are delving into, hey, who's that guy? Who's that? Who's she? What is that? And then we're jumping through and we're going through the back bins, trying to figure out what that stuff is because we know that once it's revealed what that is, that 50 cent book that was in the back bin is now going to be worth $20, $30. Like that Thor God of Thunder number 5 through number 6 through number 7. I mean, think about it. It was just in backbins. Like two
Yeah.
years ago, it was in backbins. Now it's a $70, $80 book. $200 if you can get it CGC. Right. The first appearance of Gore, right, which was like I forget the number on that one. That was a nothing book, even after the first appearance of Null. Right. Now that's going to be a $50, $60 book, just because it's so quick that now it's actually Gore is going to be making it into the MCU pretty soon. Right. So as far as understanding it, there's so much stuff like the Phoenix Force, right? She showed up in Kingdom Black 4. The Enigma Force, that showed up, right? Um, the Void Force. That's something that's showing up. There's so many other things. I mean, the thing that I was just talking about with this whole thing with Doctor Strange, that was from his series about a couple years ago in 2018.
Hmm.
um I'm looking through now. I'm looking through the whole thing with there's a reference to him when he was in the Celestial and hammering away, right? um you know if you go back to the Celestials, right, and the Ultimates 2, where they explain what happened at the beginning of the Void, the beginning of the first, I forget what the actual wording for it is, but it's like the first embankment or something like that. And then not the first, yeah, it's the first embankment. The first embankment, and there's the second and the third, or whatever it's called. I'm saying that's not the word that they actually use. That's what he's been doing all the time. He's been making swords. He's been making creations so he can freaking fight against the light. Um, and so there's all these back. So here's what's interesting. A lot of people, when Donny Keys first came out, they said, "Well, he's just pulling it out his cocktail, right?" Well, as he's going through this story stuff, I'm saying he didn't just pull it out. He's going back through Marvel Tale stuff, old Marvel Tales, and saying, "Hey, here you go. This is what this all adds to." And he's got Al Ewing on the side and a couple of
Yeah.
others. Even the stuff that I thought was absolutely terrible for Black Panther is just making a little bit more sense now.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more sense.
That's what I think. He's got so many threads going. I mean, even they did the Black Panther crossover. You just realized that the whole Ta-Nehisi Coates run would had like the symbiote Killmonger that resurrected was all tied into Null too, and
Mhm.
that to me is where they kind of hit you, right? They're like, oh well, hey, this was Null, that was Null, this was Null, and you're just like, you see it, right? You're like,
Mhm.
wow, was this a plan from like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago?
Yes, it
And
was.
that's the
Right.
best. I think that's the best credit to give a writer is, maybe even if it wasn't the idea then, he made it a really good thing now that is really really making you see the tapestry, right? The whole thing that they've done. Um, I don't know if the individual pieces work on their own, but the overall story, I think, when you look, you know, let's say 10 years from now, and you're looking back and you can see the whole picture. I
Yeah.
think I think people are going to appreciate it more than what is happening right now, because right now it's like, and I can tell you, Lucas, I don't like the idea of having to keep a spreadsheet and charts and trying to figure out
PowerPoints.
who
Yeah, I got my
relates to what.
PowerPoints. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I got a PowerPoint. It's about 235
I
slides
know.
long.
I know. I mean,
I'm like,
last month you spent the majority of our podcast explaining everything and tying the threads together, which made total sense to me after you were done. But I'm just like, wow, who like what normal fan, because we're not normal. What normal fan is going to spend the time to understand all this? And that's where I kind of think, like on some levels, I think it's genius, And then on other levels, it's like, ooh, we need to market this to, the fan base that's actually buying the book, that is, or we hope is going to buy the book. But I think like maybe they might read a few issues and say, I still don't know what's going on. you know.
Right. Right.
Um, I
But
saw.
but
I just read that. So the Namor King in Black crossover,
mhm.
you explained what was going on there for me, but I'm still like, okay, there's a stone. You
Yeah.
see,
Yeah, right. Yeah, right, exactly. So, because once again, I read that whole book, and I'm like, "What is going on? Why? Why?" It reminded me of what we were just talking about with the Peter Parker book, where there's a
yeah.
bunch of expedition. There's not really. They're supposed to be on a journey, but they're not really on a journey. They're feeling the loss and everything. But then finally, the Forgotten Stone shows up at the end, and that was the only point of that book. Period. That was it. It was like, okay, for 3.99 we get the appearance of this the appearance of this Forgotten Stone, which actually had made the appearance in another book, and that's now we finally got it. Now it finally shows up.
All
Great.
right. Let's jump into a commercial. It's showing that one of our other great podcasts. We'll be right back, and we will kind of spend a little time on a couple of other books. But let's talk WandaVision.
Do you want to find out what makes the professor do his happy dance? Check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, only on the UCPN.
Hey, check out the Old Timers podcast. That my other podcast that I do with Johnny and the 13th Crusader, where we talk old comics, where the comics are old, but the hosts aren't. So
Ah,
that's Johnny's line. So all right, so let's do our other couple of books here. We'll just kind of touch on them lightly. You wanted to bring up well, I'll bring up Maestro. Um, Now, this is the second Maestro limited series we've gotten in the last few months, and Peter David, who has kind of come back to Marvel with a vengeance. And this is what I kind of want to shout out to Marvel a little bit, is that they are bringing back the old school writers, but they're having them work on the properties that they used to work on 20 or 30 years ago. So having Peter David come back and write Hulk as Maestro, and then you have an artist like Javier Pina, and then German Peralta with Jesus Sabertov on colors with Travis Lanham's lettering. These are old characters that they're bringing back with the Hulkbusters, and then you're bringing in Doctor Doom, and something about Doctor Doom with his with the kind of heavy furry shoulders. I kind of think that's pretty cool. um, but the whole thing with the bringing back the Hulkbusters, and back in Peter David's run, these characters were all supporting characters. They were led by the intelligent Hulk, the smart Hulk, if you want to call him, um, and they all had, it was a part where, uh, an era of that book where I kind of think that they were breaking new ground after years and years of Hulk being a mindless savage, and uh, kind of getting into him being Banner in his brain while also being Hulk with his body. Um, and they were doing things that you'd never really did before, but now we know that in alternate timelines, Maestro, that smart Hulk becomes Maestro, and here, where we're kind of brainwashed to think Maestro is like the one of the big baddies in the Marvel universe. Here is he's just at the beginning of his powers here, and this is reminiscent of Old Man Logan, of like those storylines where they kind of bring these, like, I guess post apocalyptic characters back, and kind of make them go up against each other. So here they bring back the Hulkbusters, where Maestro is kind of it's kind of like old home week for this issue, but you realize that things aren't going to end the way you really want them to, because the Hulkbusters really are trying to take out Maestro. Um, And I actually like this story. I like there's a lot of stuff going on. You see, seeing characters I haven't seen in literally decades. Um, and and Peter David feels like for the most part he's also writing the symbiote Spider-Man book, so another character that he worked on heavily back in the day. But they're just kind of letting him do his own thing, and I really kind of think it's working. What do you think?
It's a you know what I had my suspicions, right? It was like, okay, we already had the Hulk book, and then you're giving me another Hulk book that's not really connected to this book, at least from what I can tell right now. But you know what? It is working, right? Because it does seem like a totally different character with a totally different storyline, and it's actually entertainment, right?
Hmm.
Um, there's the so if you remember the old man of Wolverine,
Yeah,
right?
Old Man Logan. Yeah.
And people absolutely love that storyline, right? This is a Maestro book, which is kind of like an old man Hulk that I'm loving. I like it. I like
Yeah.
he's not about the BS, right?
Hmm.
He's like, hey, because my favorite panels were everybody sitting down for dinner, right? And then he's like, all right, so what's going on? He's like, well, I rule the world.
Everybody does what
Everybody,
I say.
everybody does what I say. Nobody fights, and that's it. No cat, and that's it. And everybody's like, okay, got it. All right, sounds great. Fine. You know, but in the
Yep.
meantime, let's get on the plane and we can get on out of here. You know, um, and it's just that simpleness of is where he knows how to communicate what it's about, and he knows how, and they know how to show that if you don't agree with what he says, how he's going to deal with you.
Hmm.
That's what I'm loving. Don't, because there's the whole thing of, once again, don't tell me, don't write it out for me, show me, right? Because they were talking about the whole, hey, this person died, and then there was some tension because she says he died one way, and then the other person was saying they died that way. Well, in the later panels, they showed some of what was going on behind the scenes. Great.
Yeah.
Holy crap, great. That's awesome. Once again, if you're going to tell me, there should be a reason why you're telling me something instead of showing me. And holy, that's freaking great right there. Because that's not just an entertaining. That's a great device. If you're telling me something, there should be a reason why you're telling that to me, and it's probably you're showing me telling you something because you're a liar, and that's the only reason I want you to be telling me something and spending that many panels.
Yeah,
Bam.
I think as much as I've said on this podcast before, I don't like alternate universe what if stories because they've all been done before. This goes to prove to me that it really it's not really that I don't like. It's the fact that it has to be written well and presented to me in a package that I will buy, and that this book is that. I'm not sure if the next book, if Captain Marvel, where that book happens in an alternate timeline, where she goes to the future. Um, I don't know if that works for me. You know, so why don't you get into that? Because I know you wanted to bring Captain Marvel up.
All right, let's see. Captain Marvel number 26.
Now I know you said you like this because of all the new different characters that they introduced in the storyline, right?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say like as in, but it is, once again, it's starting to make sense, right? So there was a Captain Marvel storyline where she went into the future in the past, right? And
Hmm.
then it was
It
it
was
was it was
the
right,
Generations book. The Generations.
it was, it was a one shot, right? It was called
Yeah.
How Captain Marvel Dies.
Oh,
That
Captain
was
Marvel:
it.
The End. Right.
Yeah, yeah, right. So it was like, okay, so they say, hey, you weren't there, and then everybody died except for a very small population, and it didn't explain what actually happened. They just showed, hey, that the son died, and then that was it, and then they just shot her back. Now this is her going back to that same future, um, with the son of Namor, he's head of everybody. He's trying to take care of everybody, but there's a reason why. Is because he wants to utilize their powers in order to power him back into the past, which is the current present, in order to change everything and make sure that it doesn't happen the way it's going to happen. So his intentions are good, right? The reason why his intentions are good, but in the meantime, he's fighting against Captain Marvel, who once again they didn't sit down to explain to her, hey, this is what happened. Hey, girl, you might want to go with me, because if you don't go with me, this is what happens, right? Instead, she's stuck in the emotion of, hey, this person over here is really nice, and we're talking about Luke Cage's daughter. This person is really nice, and we want to make sure she's born. So we're gonna stop all this all of it. We're gonna stop him from doing what he needs to do, and just in order so she can be born.
Hmm.
It is really messed up, but I kind of
Yeah.
like it. I kind of
Yeah.
like it. I kind of like it. It's weird, twisted, but I like it. It's really it's a stupid decision on her part because the other thing is that she's been in a relationship with Rhodey, right?
Yeah.
Um, what for at least the last couple of years, it's supposed to be an on and
Eh,
off thing where
yeah.
where they don't they show us them sitting on the couch watching some TV every once in a while and that's it. Doesn't actually come out of that relationship. So, but now she's made the decision to not be with him because it's actually his daughter, right? It's actually Rhodey's daughter.
Yeah.
That's what it was,
She wasn't the mom.
right? And she wasn't the mom. Though I don't remember who was actually. Did they ever say who was the mom?
They never said.
So she doesn't
So
even know.
yeah, she doesn't. Well, she knows she's not the mom. That's a that's all she knows. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well. Um. But yeah, so she makes the decision to break up with him. Um. On precipice that if she's with him, then he can't be with the mom to make this person. Um, and that doesn't make any sense to me because once again, you never know what because it's supposed to be about enjoying the moments that you have with the person, right? Up until you don't.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what life is. That's what life is really enjoying the moments that you got until you can't.
He could have been. She could have been Rhodey's adopted daughter. We didn't. We don't really know.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I don't know. Yeah, you're right. The logic was flawed there at the end, but I do. So that's a moment that I actually thought was a good like creation of drama, right? And and who knows if they ever choose to really kind of revisit that? But now you have Carol and Rhodey, you know, decide to go their separate ways, which they weren't really the power couple of the Marvel universe anyway. You're right. There was kind of like a Netflix and chill relationship. Um, but but that going forward, it could kind of cause some tension, maybe. I don't know, but I, I I do think that 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 shows you it kind of shows you maybe Carol's. Well, what do you think? Would you call it a flaw, or would you call that her make kind of being noble? And wanting to make sure that the person that she met in the future actually becomes to exist. So, but you know what? I think Carol's gone to the future so many freaking times that she should get how it works. You know?
Yeah, but I don't find it noble at all because she never actually took the time to say, "Hey, man, what actually happened?"
Yeah,
She never asked Namor. They threw hands, they were throwing punches and everything instead of say, "Hey, I understand what you're trying to do, but you need to explain to me a little bit more. Maybe I can help you, or maybe there's some other way." Never did it.
yeah.
They just
I think there are so many ways that time travel works in the Marvel universe. It just depends on the writer. Um, you know. So to me, it is. I liked the twist at the end. So props to Kelly Thompson for that. Um, whether or not, I mean, we all know when they go into the future, those are timelines that never really come to be anyway. So to me, it's a little bit empty, but I can see it works in the book. So that was kind of a good moment, I think, or dramatic moment. So,
Yeah.
but let's so I know we're running short on time. Let's jump right into WandaVision. What do you think? What's going on? We're one episode away from wrapping this up,
Right.
and there is a lot to wrap up. I feel like so episode 7 and 8. I think episode 8 we got a lot of explanation for a lot of stuff,
Right.
but it was basically just a lot of stuff that's going on with Wanda.
Right.
There was like nobody else in that episode that actually got any kind of screen time other than Agatha and Wanda. So we
Right.
had no Monica, no Darcy, no Wu. Uh, there's a lot of stuff going on
Right.
that needs to
So
happen.
right. So in the episode before this week's,
Yeah.
she finally had that full on realization. Hey, I'm having a breakdown.
Yep.
I'm having a breakdown. Agatha or Agnes actually comes over, takes the boys over. She's like, "Hey, you need a break. Let me take the boys away, so you can just have the house to yourself." Um, and in the meantime, Wanda's trying to put stuff back in the house together, and it's just not happening because stuff's starting to freaking glitch, right?
Yeah.
So boys go away. Um, Agnes goes away, so she finally decides to actually get dressed up, and she goes looking for the boys, and she goes down into the basement with Agnes, and Agnes says, "Hey, I'm actually Agatha." She brings out the Dark Hold. Once again, we've been talking about that book, The Dark Hold from Kahathon for a while right now, and then
Yeah.
that leads into this week's issue. Very quickly, this week's issue was um, one. They gave a kind of quick primer on some of Agatha's background of her back in Salem, the original Salem, Massachusetts in 1693. Two, Agatha says, "Hey, I want to figure out what's happened with you. Where did you get that much power?" And in order to figure that out, they actually go into Wanda's past, right, from when she was a little kid to
Yeah.
her messing around with Von Strucker to Vision dying and Pietro dying and all that stuff, and how that affected her mind. And then the other piece was, they the whole thing of Vision, that Vision's body that becomes a big question mark, because they show that contrary to what is it Hathaway, whatever his name is, said,
Yeah.
because he said that Wanda stole Vision's body, and it looks like, according to whatever they showed, that she may not have, and in fact, they are currently. Sword is currently in possession of Vision's body, or at least a copy or whatever. It's not really explained. So great episode, great last two episodes, because they're bringing it through, they're bringing it forward. Um, so what do we have right now?
Yeah.
We've got a whole bunch of Easter eggs, right? For those that don't know, the Darkhold is a book that some of the older gods had around, and at any time somebody read from the book, they were using the power of those older gods, and those older gods just left it around so that anytime you're reading out the book, they could come back, right?
Yeah.
So
And specifically Chthon, who's the god of chaos magic that you can summon through the Darkhold. And let's say, so last week's episode, when we saw the Darkhold sitting on the shelf, they don't, they just show it. They don't explain it at all, and they didn't
right,
even go to it in this episode. You didn't even mention
right,
it.
right,
So
because they're expecting everybody to know what it is, because that's not the first appearance of that book
right,
inside the universe. The first time I remember seeing it was actually, it wasn't even there. It was missing. So if you go back to the first Doctor Strange, and he's going through the library, and he says, "Hey, where are all these books?" And they show a missing space. That missing book there was the Darkhold, was that book. And 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 as they're going forward, and they're talking to the old one and everything, you're like, "Hey, where did you get all this power and everything?" and they say, "Hey," and then they realize, "Oh, wait, she's using some of the power from the dark universe or the dark power." It's because she's been reading from that book, right? Um, so that means she's been tapping into the dark universe, the power of Chathan, and all this other stuff.
Yep.
Um,
Well, it was always also in the Darkhold figured into the Agents of Shield, right? In one of the
Oh yes,
seasons there. So
yes, yes.
it really kind of is. You kind of it's tying all together. And we're going to see. Well, I mean, like I said, if they're going to even bring that up in the next episode, they're only going to have a little bit of time to touch on certain things because there are lots of questions unanswered. We still have. We know that Pietro's not Pietro, and that even Agatha called him Fietro, and that he's just somebody that she took over to. But Wanda was so doubting herself so much that she believed it was actually him. But so I don't know if they're going to go into the alternate universe kind of scenario there with him. But I still think that that's on the table.
Right.
And I don't know. Did you see the mid-credit scene in the last episode yesterday? That
Well,
was
are you talking about the one where
where
talking
we
about?
get the rebuilt Vision uh,
Yes, right. So
with the
everybody,
white Vision.
yeah, everybody thinks it's the White Vision. Like, I don't know. We'll see because
Well,
the thing is with any type of metal, usually when it's heated up for the first time, it is white. So, I guess they might have to paint it because remember his body's supposed to be made out of vibranium, right?
right, but but I mean, this is a throwback to the 1989 West Coast Avengers storyline where the Vision is dismantled and then rebuilt, and he has got the white casing. And the thing about that Vision is that his brain was wiped. He didn't have the brain patterns of Simon Williams Wonder Man. So to make him human, he's a robot at that point, and that's where they end the Vision and Scarlet Witch's relationship. Like, up to that point they were married, but when Vision came back as the white emotionless robot, they weren't married anymore.
Mm.
So here is where I see this going, and I think we've been right on maybe 90% of our predictions on this show. But I mean, now that you have the Vision Wanda recreated out of nothing, that actually is Vision, like in the mind, but no body, and now we have Vision's actual body with no mind. So I would say by the end of the episode next week, there is going to be a merging of both of them, and you see Vision actually come back where he can exist outside the dome.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's hopefully that's the happy ending part of next week where we get Vision actually back. But there's no way this ends next week on a happy note with Wanda so fractured mentally. She's
Yeah.
gonna she's got the way this episode ended with Agatha with Billy and Tommy on the leashes. That can't end well because we all know that they're figments of someone's imagination, whether or not it's Agatha or Wanda. They're
Right.
not real,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
means they
So
can't
right.
exist outside the dome.
Right. It's see, and that's the tough situation because it's either part of Agatha or Mephisto, right? There's
Yeah.
storylines where they're made from Mephisto, or like you said, they're made from Wanda. Um, the other tough thing that we're looking at right now is the whole New Salem thing, right? So
Mhm.
the interesting thing of why they're bringing up the whole thing of her past of New Salem is because the witches that she was fighting in the beginning, that's the Salem Seven, right?
Yep.
So there is that happened, and then there's storylines in Scarlet Witch and Scarlet Witch Vision, in which Wanda actually comes to New Salem. She finds the Salem Seven there, and this is after the Salem Seven kicked out Agatha's husband. She she goes against them, and she fights them, and she destroys the whole town. She kills everybody in the whole town, like everybody outright. And the only ones that are brought back are the witches, the Salem Seven witches, right? So that's why it's interesting that as she's coming back to this town, that she all of a sudden remembers it's there, and she's driving through. There's only like 5 to 6 people in that town. right?
Right.
So, and if you notice, those are people that we know before. We've already connected some of those names to actual witches right now
Right.
so far. Um, the older one, I'm not sure. Once again, I did a quick view of the last episode. The one lady that was sitting at the cafe, I'm not sure if that's Dottie or something else, or maybe that was Agatha, right? Agatha without the glamour. I got to check that. Um, and then there's once again some of the gods. There's a whole bunch of gods that have been showing up and very little idols. So right behind Agatha, there's statues of some of the other gods. So for the past week, I went back to some of the other episodes, including the tree episode, right, where the tree was banging up against the thing.
Oh yeah.
And then if you look closely in the window, you see several eyes, like this big, looking through the window. If you look real closely.
Really?
hmm And
Okay.
then, so that could be either Chahathon or Shuma Gorath, who is another one of the elder gods. Under the nightstand of vision, there's actually a fish, which is Dagon, which is another elder god, but it's the other god of the Atlanteans. And then there's the Hoggoth and all this other stuff that's going on. I'm trying to think of what else that I saw from this episode. But once again, yeah, this whole series has been great because if you watch it through and you just watch the emotion, that's one storyline. But then if you go back and try to figure out the mystery of what's actually going on, that's a whole other mystery, and it's great to see them actually go try that stuff. Um, the whole thing about her going to retrieve his body, that was great, right? Because there's the mystery in between. This is what he told everybody, and this is what actually happened.
Yep.
If you go back to the original footage, right, and you do it slowly, right, towards the middle of the hallway, there's actually a dude that's camouflage, right? He's kind of invisible, but you can actually still see his outline. So there's something else going on there as well.
Huh.
Um, I'm trying to think if there was anything that was happening in this episode. Um,
Well, this is the first episode that we didn't get a commercial,
yes. hmm Yeah,
and so
right. It's because we got a end credit scene.
right. Well, and then we explained the episode before where you actually, so we had talked already about the nexus of all realities, and we get an actual commercial on about nexus. That's like
Yeah.
I was shouting that out, like I was
Yes.
texting you at the same time. I was like, that's the nexus of all realities. so so I was like, we were right about that, and I mean we were right about Agatha, but I mean that was the biggest giveaway, the whole thing.
Yeah,
But
but nobody
I was
nobody was tracking in the whole nexus of realities except for us, baby. We got the receipts. We got
yes.
the receipts. Because we talked
um
about it. Because that's where MCU is going right now.
yeah.
Forget about this whole time traveling stuff, right? They're doing the nexus of all realities. So you can't time travel. You can't go back in time. But what you can do is you can go to an actual different dimension where something that is close to probability is happening. That's what
Yep.
chaos magic is.
Yep.
She doesn't wiggle her fingers to make stuff happen. She changes the probability of stuff happening.
Yep.
So that's another interesting thing that's going on with her right now.
But you can see, so you see that concept being enlarged and then continuing in Doctor Strange and then Spider-Man going forward, right? So those are two this idea of the nexus of all realities is this is phase 4, right? This is phase 4 in the MCU, is the nexus of all realities. Let's bring in the FF, let's bring in Deadpool and the X-Men, let's bring in all these other realities into the MCU. And that's how we're doing this. They're telling you how they're doing this. So this is they're going to tie in. So this is the spaced part, right? So you think what else is coming up? We're talking about King the Conqueror. So we're also talking about time coming up in the Ant-Man movie, right?
Right.
Time. So this is the space part, and then when we get into Loki, we're going to get the time part, because now we know from watching Endgame that we had Loki messed up the time stream by surviving, right? Surviving in that in that moment of when they showed the Avengers, right? So he
Yeah.
just kind of he disappeared. He grabbed the staff and disappeared. So now he's off in he's off in the ether, never killed by Thanos. So
Right.
that's that, and I love the fact that he is the god of mischief. So now he's going to be all over the timeline just causing stuff. So
Yeah.
that's where Kang's coming from. So you have this whole time and space, huge concepts in the Marvel universe that we haven't touched on yet. But this is the space, and then when we get Loki, we're going to get the time, and then the doors are going to be blown open for whatever they want to do.
Right.
They can
And,
just exploit it.
and I'm glad you brought up Loki, because I guarantee you what's going to happen is they're going to show that all the bad stuff he's been doing, all the mischief he's been doing, has been trying to stop or save most of the
Yeah.
universe or from this happening.
Yeah.
And that they're going to show, hey, he saw this already happening, so this is what he's been doing to try and stop that from happening, right?
Yep.
Because I've seen the actual analysis of this where they say, hey, yeah, he brought this whole Chithuri army force to Earth, but he brought it up on just one point where he knew the Avengers would be at just the right point. So
Yep.
he was actually doing a good thing because they were going to come
Yep.
regardless. He just been trying to make sure they got to the right people and they were going to be killed by the right people. So,
Well, and they've
I
done
think that's where we're going to go.
this is what Marvel does it makes you question what villainy is, right? So where you kind of are like, okay, so he's the bad guy, like Killmonger in Black Panther. He's the bad guy, but you kind of almost agree with him, you know? So so now you're going to get Loki, who has been the bad guy, and you're going to realize that he hasn't really been as bad as you think, right?
Yeah.
He's just got a bad rap. So that's for me. I think that's what I love about this is it's because it just does make you think about people and their motivations and the drama. And I said this yesterday in our thread, but if Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany do not win whatever awards that they give out for acting for this series, there's a travesty going on because I love whenever they're on the screen, and I love what Elizabeth Olsen is doing. I think Paul Bettany is a comic genius and dramatic genius, and I've seen Paul Bettany in a ton of stuff. I've never seen him in something as memorable as this.
Yes.
And I think that they should both be proud of what they're doing, and really everybody involved in this show. And I know I'm saying it before the last episode comes out, so please don't make me wrong. This needs to wrap up. Like, I hope it doesn't end like all the Marvel Comics event books do. So,
Well, you got to remember they've got so many other shows and series and movies to bring that in and
Yeah.
fix it, right? Because I don't think they anticipated that people would actually like it as much. Because the first two episodes, people hated. People are like, "What?
Oh yeah.
Doggone."
But
They're
now,
like,
if
"What
you
was
look
going
back
on?"
on it, it's genius.
Yeah.
So for me, it is really. And I think they actually get a boost in popularity because we haven't seen anything Marvel for over a year and a half. So there you go. You needed we needed our Marvel fix, and to have something hit that was so unexpectedly good, right? Like
Right.
I didn't expect much from this. But the every time you watch it, it's like watching a movie on your TV screen. Whatever they're spending on the budget and the production values, we're not watching Star Trek. We're not watching like something that was made for TV. This is made for the film. And if they were to put this on a big screen at your local AMC, you would be happy to go see it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up. The Star Trek Viacom CBS, right? They've been trying to put out Star Trek stuff. DC, they've been trying to put out stuff, and people give them props for the animated stuff, but their movies right now suck. Right? CBS, they've been trying to put out these other stories, between Star Trek and then the new one is Clarice, right? But you know what? All that stuff is missing when they really try. It's just the emotion, right?
Yeah.
Let's forget the whole magic stuff. that whole scene where she's driving through the town and then she drives up to the plot and there's nothing there.
That is a dramatic moment.
Holy,
When she opens the deed and sees the red heart with to grow old in V. Come on,
yeah.
if you didn't have a twinge, you have no soul, because that's
Well,
that
you
was
know,
the dramatic moment of the season.
there's an Easter egg right there on that blueprint where there's 3 plots, right, and 3 of those plots have the same number.
Really,
Yeah, so I'll let everybody chase that one down. Um,
you
and
don't know what
then,
the number is.
oh, I mean, the problem, I don't know what it is, but there is something, the most likely thing is just to show that her memory is a little bit faulty right now, and there's something that's messing around with the memory. There's also the Easter egg in that her power has always been shown as red, yet when she's rebuilding Vision,
It
his
was
body,
yellow.
yeah, it was yellow.
That
Was
was
it
the
yellow
Mind
or
Stone.
orange?
That
Well,
was
but she doesn't have it, right?
Yeah, but it was the Mind Stone that gave her the powers, and they showed that in that episode.
Well, no,
Was
no,
that
no.
and that was all yellow,
Well,
right?
no, no, she doesn't. The Mind Stone didn't give her powers. Remember, so when
It
she even
awoke her powers, right?
because when she was it shows when she was a little kid, she already had the powers. So they're driving something along with that thing.
Well,
So, but
yeah,
no.
okay, we could talk about it. I don't want to get into another 20-minute discussion because we could talk about it all day. But yeah, no, you're right. So there was a different use of her powers to bring Vision back, which is why he was yellow as opposed to why usually her power has
Yeah,
been red.
right.
So that was a different use. And you know what? Maybe they explain that next week in the final episode.
They have to
Yeah.
because there's every single particular one had different details to what's been explained to her or had been explained before. Each and every single one of those. So I think hopefully they're gonna explain that, or that's going to be the part, or they're going to explain that in later on in the MC universe. So
All right.
good stuff.
Yeah, we'll see. So the next time that we talk, we'll wrap WandaVision up, and hopefully we'll have some really good comic books to talk about.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in early March. All right. Well,
Hopefully,
see.
hopefully vaccinated and COVID free.
I hope to be vaccinated by the next podcast, but I don't know if that'll happen. All right. We'll see you. Peace out.